The summer sun bore down on Maplewood Lane, where freshly painted porches and neat hedges lined the street. A moving truck rumbled to a stop in front of a modest two-story home. As the Black family began unloading, a white woman across the street, middle-aged, arms crossed, face clenched with disapproval, watched intently. Her name was Carol. Her jaw tightened as she muttered, "Just what this neighborhood needed." The mother, Angela, noticed her but kept smiling for her two children, who danced around with joy. Then Carol stormed across the road. "Excuse me," Carol said sharply. "Are you sure you're at the right address?" The father, Marcus, paused mid-lift of a box. "Yes, we are," he said calmly. Carol's eyes scanned the kids, the SUV, the family's modest clothes. "Because this neighborhood isn't cheap." Marcus locked eyes with her. "That's all right," he said. "We don't do cheap." Carol flinched. Her voice dropped, laced with contempt. "People like you don't belong here." The air turned heavy. Marcus replied, "Funny. I was thinking the same thing." Later that evening, the air was cooler, but still thick with the memory of tension. Angela stood at the kitchen window, hands deep in soapy water, staring blankly out into the quiet street. The kids were upstairs laughing. Thank God they hadn't fully grasped what had happened. Marcus entered silently, dropping a small box of tools on the counter. Angela said, "She didn't even see us." "Not really." Marcus nodded. She saw what she wanted to see. Angela turned to him, her voice softer now. "How long do you think we'll have to prove we belong here?" Marcus stepped behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "We don't have to prove anything," he said. "We already do." Upstairs, the kids had turned their bedroom into a jungle of cardboard castles. Jaden, the older of the two, peeked through a cutout window and declared, "I'm king of Maplewood." His sister Maya giggled and added, "Then I'm queen." Laughter echoed as Angela leaned into the hallway watching them. For a moment, the pain faded. These children were hope personified, unafraid, unburdened. But then, from downstairs, a knock. 3 loud raps. Angela and Marcus exchanged looks. She whispered, "Not again." Marcus descended, opened the door. Carol stood there again. "Just letting you know," she said coldly. "The trash bins go out Tuesdays. People around here follow rules." She turned and walked off without waiting for a response. Marcus shut the door with quiet finality. "We follow truth," he muttered. The next morning, Carol stood outside watering her lawn. Overwatering, really. The hose gushed water onto already damp grass, the stream conveniently angled near the Black family's driveway. Marcus, dressed for work in a button-up and slacks, stepped outside and caught her eye. "Good morning," he said plainly. Carol huffed. "Try not to block the sidewalk with your car again." Marcus looked down the driveway. His car was perfectly aligned. "Thanks for the heads up," he said with a nod. Carol's face reddened as she turned away. The children skipped outside behind him. "Morning, Miss Carol," Maya called cheerfully. Carol didn't respond. Marcus's jaw tightened. But he crouched beside Maya. "Never stop being kind, even when others aren't," he said. Maya nodded. "Okay, Daddy." That evening, the street was still. Porch lights flickered on, one by one. Marcus sat on the steps of his house, a mug in hand, watching the sky turn indigo. Angela joined him, resting her head on his shoulder. "Do you think she'll ever change?" she asked. Marcus sipped his tea. "Change isn't always loud. Sometimes it's slow and silent." From across the street, Carol watched them from her window, curtain barely pulled aside. For the first time, there was no scowl on her face, just something unreadable. A flicker of doubt, or maybe recognition. The children burst through the front door, chasing each other barefoot down the porch steps, laughter trailing like wind. Carol flinched at the sound, but didn't turn away. Not this time. A week earlier, before the boxes in the moving van, the family stood in an empty house. Dust floated in golden shafts of sunlight, cutting through bare windows. Angela ran her fingers along the kitchen counter, whispering, "This is it." Marcus placed a firm hand on her back. "Yeah, this is ours." Jaden ran from room to room, declaring each one his new fort. Maya followed, giggling, twirling in empty corners. Marcus crouched and looked at his children. "You know why this house is special?" Jaden nodded. "Because it's big." Marcus smiled. "Because it's ours. And nobody can take that from us." Angela closed her eyes for a moment, savoring peace before the storm. "Let's make this house loud," she said. "Laughter, music, life, let them hear us living." Marcus kissed her forehead. "That's the only way." Later that night, Angela sat alone on a mattress on the floor, the only furniture in the room. Boxes towered around her like quiet sentinels. Her phone glowed softly in her lap, an open email from her job confirming her transfer to the local clinic. Relief mixed with worry. Marcus stepped in, towel around his neck from the shower, drying his hair. "You all right?" he asked. Angela nodded but didn't smile. "Just thinking about how people might see me when I show up." The only black woman in the room again. Marcus sat beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "Let them see, let them stare, but they'll also see you do your work better than anyone else." She leaned against him. "Sometimes I get tired of being the proof." Marcus replied gently, "Then just be the presence." Their first morning on Maplewood Lane was filled with promise. Angela laid out cereal bowls in the kitchen, while Marcus helped the kids get dressed. Maya asked, "Will there be kids like us there?" Marcus paused, tying her shoe. "Some will be like you. Some won't. That's okay." Angela added, "Be kind, be curious, and be yourself." The kids walked hand in hand to the bus stop, their new backpacks oversized on small frames. Across the street, a few neighbors pretended not to see them. One man watered his lawn and turned his back. A woman walking her dog crossed the street to avoid passing them. Angela stood at the curb, her hand raised in a wave that went unanswered. She smiled anyway. Marcus watched it all unfold. "They'll get used to us," Angela said. "Or they won't," he replied. "Either way, we'll be here." At the community park later that week, Marcus took the kids to play. Jaden ran toward the jungle gym, only to stop short as a group of white children turned and stared. Maya clung to Marcus's side. The parents nearby gave tight, polite smiles, or none at all. Angela joined them on the bench, her eyes scanning the cool expressions. "They're just kids," she whispered. "And those are just parents," Marcus said. "But they're learning by watching." When Jaden finally climbed the slide, a boy moved away. Maya looked up at Marcus. "Do they not like us?" Marcus swallowed hard. "They just don't know you yet." He smiled gently. "Let them learn." Angela squeezed his hand. "And what if they never do?" He looked across the park, eyes steady. "We're not here to be liked. We're here to live." That night, the family gathered on the living room floor with takeout containers, eating cross-legged and laughing over fortune cookies. Music played softly from a phone speaker. Marvin Gaye, warm and smooth. For a moment, the walls echoed with joy. Angela leaned her head back. This is what I want them to see." Marcus raised his box of noodles like a toast. "To new beginnings." The kids raised their juice boxes. "To our house," Jaden shouted. "To family," Maya added. Outside, unseen through the curtains, Carol stood on her lawn again, watching the shadows flicker through their window. She heard laughter, saw joy. Her brow furrowed. She walked away quietly, but something in her step was different, slower, uneasy. Inside, the family was still laughing, louder now. The house had come alive. The call came just after 9 p.m. Marcus opened the door to two officers standing stone-faced on the porch. "We got a report of suspicious activity," one said. Marcus frowned. "Suspicious, neighbor complaint," the other added. "Loud music, possible disturbance." Marcus turned back toward his quiet, dimly lit home. Angela stood in the hallway, wide-eyed. The kids peeked down from the staircase, silent. "There's no party here," Marcus said, voice calm but tight. One officer glanced past him, unimpressed. "Mind if we look around?" Marcus hesitated. Angela stepped forward, phone in hand, camera already recording. "You're being filmed," she said. The officers paused, then exchanged looks. "Just a warning tonight. Keep it down." As they walked off, Carol watched from across the street, arms folded. Angela whispered, "She called them." Marcus exhaled slowly. Of course she did. The next morning, Marcus stood outside checking the mailbox when he saw the spray paint. Black letters across the sidewalk in front of their home. "Go back." His stomach sank. He looked around, no witnesses. No sounds except distant lawnmowers. Angela stepped out with coffee and froze when she saw it. "Oh my God," she whispered. "The kids." Marcus quickly moved to block their view. "Why? Go back inside," he said gently. "I'll handle it." He returned minutes later with a bucket and scrub brush, hands moving in quiet fury. Angela stood watch as he scrubbed. No neighbors offered help. No one spoke. Just silence. Jaden pressed his face to the window. "What does it mean?" he asked. Maya whispered, "Why would someone say that?" Marcus looked up, drenched in sweat. "Because they're scared," he muttered. "Of what?" Angela asked. "Of us. Of what we represent." At school, things weren't any better. Jaden came home with torn backpack straps and a bruise on his arm. Angela knelt to check him. "What happened?" she asked, holding his face. He looked away. "Some boys said we don't belong. One pushed me." Angela's eyes burned. "Did you tell a teacher?" "They said it was horseplay." Marcus clenched his fists. Later that evening, he met with the principal. A polished man in a crisp tie offered careful words. "We encourage inclusion, Mr. Davis, but boys will be boys." Marcus stared at him. "Would they be boys if my son pushed theirs?" The principal blinked, caught. "We'll investigate." On the ride home, Marcus was silent. Angela asked softly, "What are we teaching our kids?" Marcus looked out the window. "That sometimes the world isn't fair, but we still stand, always." Angela attended her first neighborhood association meeting, hoping to connect. But as she entered the small community hall, conversations stopped. Eyes turned. She smiled politely and took a seat. The president, a woman with pearl earrings and a clipboard, gave her a cursory glance before moving on. As topics shifted from landscaping to garbage pickup, Angela raised her hand. "I'd like to propose a block cleanup day. Get the kids involved." The room stayed silent. Someone cleared their throat. The president gave a tight smile. "Interesting idea. We'll consider it." Angela sat still, feeling invisible in full view. Afterward, she walked home alone. A man from the meeting passed by her on the sidewalk, but said nothing. As she approached her door, Marcus was waiting. "How was it?" he asked. Angela smiled bitterly. "They didn't see me, just my color." That night, Marcus sat alone in the garage, staring at old photo albums. Pictures of his grandfather in a suit, standing in front of a brick building marked Davis Realty. Images of deeds, handwritten letters, and a yellowing newspaper article. "Black man buys back the block." Angela entered, kneeling beside him. "Why haven't you told anyone?" she asked. Marcus looked down. "Because I wanted us to be accepted without the weight of what we own. I wanted to walk in the front door like anyone else." Angela gently closed the album. "Maybe it's time they knew who we are and where we come from." Marcus nodded slowly. "They see us as visitors. Maybe it's time they realize we're the foundation." The truth had been buried too long. But not for much longer. The Block Association announced a mandatory zoning meeting. Marcus decided to attend. Angela said softly, "You ready to stop being quiet?" He smiled faintly. "More than ready." Inside the small town hall, neighbors filled folding chairs. Marcus stood at the back, arms crossed. Carol sat near the front, whispering to the pearl-clad president. When the topic shifted to new housing ordinances, someone mentioned parcel ownership. Most of this land is tied up in old deeds. A man scoffed. Marcus raised a hand. The room went silent. Actually, I'd like to speak to that. Whispers sparked. And you are? The president asked. Marcus walked forward. Marcus Davis, co-owner of Davis Family Trust. He pulled a folder from his coat, opened it. My grandfather bought this block 50 years ago. The land you're living on, it still belongs to us. Silence fell. Even Carol's smirk vanished. Marcus laid the documents on the table. Deeds. Tax receipts. A faded land survey map with his grandfather's signature. Davis Realty stamped in thick ink. The room leaned in. When my grandfather passed, he left the block in a trust. My family still manages it, Marcus explained. A lawyer sitting near the back raised an eyebrow. Are you saying you technically own the land under our homes? Marcus nodded. That's exactly what I'm saying. A murmur swept the room. Carol stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. If that's true, why are you just now saying it? Marcus looked directly at her. Because I thought decency would come without leverage, but now I'm not so sure. The air felt razor thin. Eyes darted. The narrative was changing, and the room knew it. After the meeting, Marcus walked through the parking lot, papers tucked under his arm. A younger couple from the neighborhood caught up to him. Hey, we didn't know about your family. Marcus smiled politely. Most people don't. It's impressive, the man added, hesitantly. Not sure what it means for us, but wow. Marcus nodded. It means I'm not a guest here. None of us are. Angela pulled up in the car, window down. Everything good? It's getting there, Marcus replied. From across the lot, Carol stood frozen beside her car. Her eyes locked with Marcus's. For the first time she didn't glare, just look. Raw, uncertain. He gave a small nod. No malice. Just truth. She didn't return it, but she didn't turn away either. That night, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with Jaden and Maya. He opened the same photo album from the garage. This is your great-grandpa Harold, he said. He didn't have much, but he bought every inch of this land when nobody else wanted it. Jaden's eyes lit up. He owned all of it? Marcus nodded. He believed that owning where you stand changes how you walk. Maya leaned over the photos. Then we're not just living here. We belong here. Angela watched from the hallway, her heart full. That's right, baby, she said. And never let anyone make you feel small. Jaden looked up. Does Carol know that? Marcus smiled softly. Now she does. The family leaned in together, bound not by land alone, but by legacy. The next morning, Carol stood at her mailbox as Marcus walked by. Their eyes met again. This time Marcus offered a quiet morning. Carol didn't speak at first. Then, almost inaudibly, she replied, morning. He continued walking. She stared after him. Something had shifted. Inside her house, Carol pulled out a folder, her mortgage documents. The name on the property record, Davis Family Trust. Her hands trembled slightly. Outside, Angela planted flowers along their walkway. A neighbor across the street waved for the first time. The kids rode their bikes down the sidewalk, their laughter loud and unbothered. Carol sat at her window and watched, not with disdain, but with something unfamiliar. Reflection. A community was changing, and she felt it in her bones. Carol stormed across the street once again, but this time not with smugness. She looked shaken. She clutched a folded letter in her hand and slammed it into Marcus's mailbox. Marcus, who had been watering the front garden, saw her. Something I can help you with? He asked. Carol turned. This says my mortgage is tied to your family's trust. You could evict us? Marcus walked over slowly. It's true, but that's never been my intention. She scoffed. You think that makes you better? Marcus didn't flinch. I think it makes me patient. Carol's voice trembled. All this time, you let me treat you like dirt. Because how you see me, Marcus said calmly. Never changed who I am? For the first time, Carol looked uncertain. Not angry. Not defensive. Just lost. Why didn't you say anything sooner? She whispered. Because I was hoping you'd see us as neighbors, not threats, Marcus replied. News of the trust ownership spread like wildfire. Whispers at the grocery store, side glances at the gas station. One neighbor approached Angela in the parking lot. So, technically, you're our landlord. Angela blinked. If you want to call it that. The woman half laughed. Guess that makes you the real boss around here. Angela just smiled, exhausted. We don't want control. We want community. That evening, a few neighbors gathered outside, watching from a distance as the Davis family ate dinner on their porch. They're so calm, one muttered. I'd be throwing it in everyone's face. But Marcus didn't gloat. He refilled juice cups, helped Maya with homework. Angela laughed at Jaden's jokes. Theirs wasn't power worn loud, it was legacy lived quiet. It unsettled people more than shouting ever could. Marcus received a letter in the mail, an official notice from the zoning committee. A neighbor had filed for a motion to restrict land rights for outside investors. It was veiled legal sounding, but targeted. He sat quietly at the kitchen table reading it. Angela entered, reading his face. They're still coming, huh? He nodded. Fear makes people build walls, even flimsy ones. She sat beside him. Then, let's knock it down. That night, Marcus stood before the committee again, this time, with their attorney by his side. We aren't outsiders, he said into the mic. We are owners, stakeholders, history bearers. The board shuffled awkwardly. This motion is rooted in fear, not fairness. Applause broke out, not loud, but enough. Enough to let Marcus know something was cracking open. The next day, Marcus stepped onto Carol's porch, first time ever. He knocked gently. She opened it, confused. Marcus? He held out a small box. These are clippings from the original land purchase. Deeds, letters. I thought maybe you'd want to understand. She hesitated, then took it. Inside, an old photo of his grandfather handing a check to a realtor in front of what was now her house. He didn't buy it to flip it, Marcus said. He bought it to pass down something more. Carol stared at the photo. Why are you showing me this? Because it's never been about kicking anyone out. It's about planting something that lasts. Carol nodded slowly. I don't know what to say. Marcus smiled faintly. You don't have to. Just listen. And then, for the first time, Carol invited him in. Inside Carol's home, the atmosphere was awkward, but different. Marcus sat in a chair he'd only seen from a distance before. Carol held the photo of his grandfather with both hands, fingers trembling slightly. He looks proud, she murmured. He was, Marcus said. And he'd be even prouder now. Carol set the photo down carefully. I've lived here for 30 years, and I never knew. Now you do. She looked up. And I've been wrong. I judged you, all of you. Marcus nodded. Yeah, but we stayed anyway. The clock ticked softly in the background. I want to be better, she added. Start there, Marcus said. And don't stop. He stood, heading toward the door. You're not the only one who can change, Carol, but you have to want it more than your comfort. She watched him leave in silence, but with something new behind her eyes. Humility. Sunday morning brought a quiet different from before, not tense, but reflective. Marcus walked to the end of the driveway to collect the paper. Across the street, Carol stood with a rake in hand, tidying her yard. Their eyes met. She hesitated, then offered a genuine nod. Marcus nodded back. No words. Just mutual recognition. As he turned, he saw other neighbors slowly emerging, more visible than before. A man walking his dog raised a hand in greeting. A mother waved as her daughter biked past. Something was shifting. Not fast. Not loudly. But real. Angela opened the screen door. "You see that?" she asked. "I do," Marcus said. "For the first time I really do." And as he stepped back inside, the papers still tucked under his arm, he realized this wasn't just about acceptance. It was about presence. And finally, being seen. Later that day, Angela stood at a folding table outside their house, setting out lemonade and cookies. "Just something simple," she told Marcus. "For anyone who wants to stop by." At first, the street stayed quiet. But then, the young couple from a few doors down arrived, offering homemade bread. A few others followed, awkward at first, but curious. Carol appeared last, holding a small tray of deviled eggs. "I made too many," she said, eyes down. Angela smiled warmly. Perfect timing. Kids ran circles around them as adults shared casual conversations. Nothing profound, just presence. Angela watched them all. "It's not forgiveness," she whispered. "But it's a beginning." Marcus nodded beside her. "Sometimes that's all we need." And for the first time the street didn't feel divided. It felt shared. That evening, Jaden and Maya sat with their parents under the porch light. "Daddy," Maya asked, "does owning something mean we always win?" Marcus smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "No, baby. Owning something means we carry responsibility. Not power over others, but care for them." Jaden tilted his head. "Even the ones who were mean to us?" Angela leaned forward. "Especially them, because if they never learn kindness from us, where will they learn it at all?" The children nodded quietly. Fireflies blinked in the yard. The world was still unfair sometimes, but within this home there was clarity. Marcus stood and stretched. "You two are the reason we're here. Remember that." Maya giggled. "We're the foundation." "Exactly," he said. "Stone doesn't move when the wind blows." And the wind did blow, but the house stood firm. Carol walked her property line slowly, tracing the edges of the lawn with a gaze that saw more than grass. She stopped near her rosebush, planted years ago, barely surviving. She knelt down, touched its base, and pulled away a few weeds. Across the street, Marcus watched from his porch. She looked up, unsure. He raised his coffee mug slightly in greeting. This time she waved back. Not stiff. Not reluctant. Honest. Wan. Real. She stood and walked inside, passing a small framed photo now hanging in her front hallway. Harold Davis, standing tall in a black and white print. She'd put it there herself. Not out of guilt, but out of acknowledgement. History wasn't something to deny, it was something to carry. And finally, she was ready to carry her part. The next community meeting felt different. Marcus sat at the table, not in the back, but at the front. Angela beside him, calm and confident. This time when Marcus spoke, people listened. "I'm not here to lead you," he said. "I'm here to build with you." The president nodded. "We'd like you to join the zoning advisory board." Murmurs of agreement filled the room. Carol raised her hand. "I second that," she said, steady. Marcus looked surprised, but only for a moment. He smiled. "Then let's do this right." Outside after the meeting, the stars glowed above Maplewood Lane. Angela leaned into Marcus. "Did you ever think we'd come this far?" He looked up. "My grandfather did. I'm just catching up." And as the neighbors passed them with nods and waves, the street no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like home. The street buzzed gently on a Saturday morning. New kids drew chalk murals on sidewalks, dogs barked in the distance, and neighbors chatted while watering lawns. On the Davis lawn, Jaden and Maya had set up a lemonade stand, homemade signs, sticky fingers, and proud smiles. Carol approached with her granddaughter in tow. "2 lemonades, please," she said. Maya handed over the cups, beaming. Carol's granddaughter, A quiet girl with curly hair smiled shyly at Maya. "Wanna play?" Maya asked. Carol hesitated for a beat, then gave a small nod. The two girls ran off, laughter trailing behind them. Angela, watching from the porch, exhaled slowly. "Did you see that?" she asked Marcus. He nodded. "That sound, that's the future learning to sound different." And in that sound, there was hope. Inside the Davis home, Marcus placed the final photo on the wall, a framed image of his grandfather standing on the steps of an old office marked Davis Realty. Below it, he added a brass plaque that read, "Legacy is not what you leave, it's what you live." He stepped back, arms crossed, letting the moment settle. Angela walked in, carrying a folder from the advisory board. "They want you to chair the next meeting." Marcus chuckled. "I guess we're the establishment now." She leaned against him. "No, we're the roots. They just finally noticed the tree." Outside, Jaden and Maya's laughter rang again. The sound passed through the open window like sunlight through glass. A home once marked by suspicion now echoed with pride. The walls didn't just hold history now. They held belonging. That afternoon, a city official placed a new street sign on the corner of Maplewood Lane. The pole gleamed under the sun, and the fresh green sign read, "Davis Way." A small gathering watched, clapping politely. Some neighbors, the zoning board, and even Carol. Angela took a photo. Maya asked, "They named it after us?" Marcus crouched beside her. "They named it after the truth. And we carry it now." A local reporter took photos, capturing moments of unity. One picture, Carol standing beside Angela, both holding cups of lemonade, would end up on the city website. It wasn't about erasing the past. It was about changing what came next. Slowly, block by block. Truthfully. Quietly. Permanently. Evening came, painting the sky with streaks of gold and lavender. The Davis family sat in the backyard, surrounded by low garden lights and the quiet hum of summer. Music played softly from a speaker, Sam Cooke's voice floating through the breeze. Carol walked up to the fence with a plate in hand. "Peach cobbler," she said. "It's a start." Angela took it with a surprised smile. "Thank you, Carol." Carol lingered. "I was wrong. I've got a lot to learn." Marcus nodded. "Learning's a gift. Keep accepting it." Carol looked at the children chasing fireflies and let out a small, sincere laugh. Then she turned and walked back home, slower this time. Angela took Marcus' hand. "I think she sees it now?" "Yeah," he replied. "So does everyone else." The final shot lingered on the street sign, Davis Way, as the sun dipped behind the rooftops. The narrator's voice carried softly over the image. "In a world that often demands noise to prove worth, some power moves in silence. Some truth doesn't shout. It stands. And when history knocks, it doesn't always demand a fight. Sometimes it just waits to be seen." This wasn't about revenge. It was about presence. Dignity, ownership, not of land but of self. And when you carry that truth... The screen slowly faded to black as children's laughter echoed, faint but undeniable. One final word appeared in bold, quiet font, "Legacy."